Hi, would you like to hear from somebody who started a YouTube channel, all of the things that I wish I would have known before I started the YouTube channel? Well, if so, then stick around and I will tell you all about it. Hi, my name is Kristi Winters. I'm a recent YouTube poster. I started in the last, I'd say, 2 months posting videos on YouTube on a regular basis. And there are, in my experience, a lot of videos on different pieces of that process, but not one video that kind of covers from going to total newbie to posting your first video. And in this video, that's exactly what I want to do. What I want to do in this video is go over things that you will find interesting if you are contemplating starting your own YouTube channel. And in particular, I want to discuss how I got the idea to do the channel very briefly, deciding on the content that I wanted to put up on YouTube and why I chose the content that I did. Research into cameras, equipment, and those sorts of more, physical parts of the YouTube channel process. Then I want to discuss tips on research into filming and framing, lighting, and the actual recording parts of doing a YouTube video. Then in the next section I want to discuss editing, my approach and tips for editing my software and my videos. And then I also want to talk a little bit about getting onto YouTube and interacting with a YouTube community or your YouTube audience. So my name, again, is Kristi, and I put out stuff on my channel, which is Dr. K.M. Winters, and I put out atheist content for the atheist community, but also for people who are questioning theists. And that was pretty much my intention from the beginning when I started my YouTube channel. I really knew the content that I wanted to produce and the audience for whom I wanted to produce it. I initially got the idea to start a YouTube channel from not seeing content that I wanted to see on YouTube. I was watching a lot of atheist videos and I really enjoy the stuff that's put out by the community. But, after a few years, I guess I'd kind of seen a lot of the same arguments, and I had things that I was interested in, but nobody was making that content. And I just thought, well, I guess that means I should make it. The other thing that was important at the time was I was watching Drunk History. And I don't know if you guys have seen the series, there are clips available on YouTube, but I just thought if people could go up and get completely drunk and go on television and make television, I could go on YouTube sober and make YouTube videos. So that was quite inspiring for me, but also, again, having something I wanted to say, knowing the community to whom I wanted to say it, and having the confidence to get out there were the three things that came together when I decided to make my YouTube channel. When I first had the idea, to be honest, I didn't start looking into equipment or lighting or anything else. I didn't start thinking about my YouTube channel name or anything along those lines. I started thinking about my content and what kind of content I wanted to put up. And I had more ideas for content than I really have time to do. I would love to, I've got like 4 different series I would love to be running right now, but I don't have the time. So if I wanted to have a channel and I wanted to get subscribers and get people invested, what could I reasonably do starting out that would engage people? And for that I chose, I'm doing a book series called A Different Atheist Reads A History of God by Karen Armstrong, based off of an Atheist Reads series, which is on YouTube. And the other format that I chose was more of a topical, lighthearted engagement with perhaps more wacky theological questions that most people wouldn't be familiar with. The reason that I chose those 2 things was because a book was more stable than a news series. I didn't want to have to be keeping on top of news and trying to follow the news. I didn't want to post daily. I only wanted to post weekly. So a regular book chapter seemed like a natural fit. And the other thing was I didn't want to just be doing the book chapter. I wanted to show more of my personality and also more of the range of interests I have and the things that I want to say. So A Different Atheist Reads is the book series, a bit more serious. An Atheist Asks is a bit more lighthearted. And I want both of those aspects of my channel out there for people to find. The last thing that I decided was when I had narrowed my choices down to starting with A Different Atheist Reads and An Atheist Asks was I wanted one video for An Atheist Asks because I wanted to show that part of my content. But for the book series, I didn't think people would sign up for just one video on a book. So in my first sort of week on YouTube, uploaded 4 videos that I'd made, 3 from the book series and 1 from An Atheist Asks. And that way when people came to the channel too, they had more than just 1 video to look at. Again, this investment in getting subscribers who are willing to come back to my channel is a norm value that I have. And so if that's not what you want, just ignore that part of this video. Once I had the idea for the YouTube channel, then it was about equipment. And there are a lot of videos. I'm not going to put up a whole lot of links in the description box below because there are so many videos on many of these topics. I will put up selectively links to equipment that I use or software that I use or videos that I think you really need to watch. And the first thing, I gotta look at here, sorry. When it comes to doing my camera, I was in a position where I could afford to spend a little bit more money, but I also bought a camera so I wouldn't have to buy a camera for another 10 years. So, well, maybe not 10 years, maybe 4 years at least. So this is what I've gone with, and this is what is recording right now. Yes, you can see it is coming to focus. I understand that the 600 is actually quite close to the 700 on the Canon D series, and the EOS Canon 700D, and the 600, I've got a friend with the 600, he says it's pretty much the same, but they didn't have those in stock and I wanted to get going. I really like that camera quite a lot. It's very easy to use, and it's, yeah, so if you're looking for a recommendation, I would definitely say that the Canon EOS 700D series, I think it's the Rebel. You can tell I'm not a techie, I just know that it works. But I like it, I love my camera. So, but you don't need a great camera. You will hear this advice, just don't use your a webcam from your desktop or your laptop. Even your phone camera is going to probably be a higher quality than that. And the thing about your camera, you have to, of course, weigh the investment in terms of how much you want to spend and how much money you have in terms of quality. But if you don't want to spend a ton of money, that's fine. Quality comes from the content, not from the equipment. And if you've watched any of your favorite YouTubers, you'll know that if you go back to their very first videos, unless they're pros, if they're just ordinary people, their videos tend to suck, but they get better, and your videos will get better. My videos got better, so don't worry so much about having perfect equipment. In terms of sound, I went ahead and I don't know if you pronounce it Rode, the shotgun mic, again, very happy with it. It requires a 9-volt battery, so I make a point of always having a spare around for when I need to do the recording. The other thing I bought was a tripod, very important for recording, and I do most of my video in the house. This is my exciting flat in my little corner where I record. I don't need the kind of Go equipment or Go recording, so a lot of this is probably going to be driven by your own content and what your content demands. You don't need brilliant equipment, you need brilliant content, and if you have really good content, then you can buy equipment that will get better. But if you have great equipment and not really good content, great equipment won't help with that. So, last thing is the lighting. My lighting setup is probably the weakest part of my recording right now. I'm just using bulbs from around my house, and I'm playing around with those. The videos that you'll see on lighting will have 3 elements that I think are quite helpful. The key light, which is the light that's coming down on my face right now, is the one that gives me obviously the most light here, but I tend to get a lot of sun reflection off my glasses, so I've had to play a lot with making sure that my lights don't bounce too much off my lenses. The light that is over here, which you can't see, but if I block my face you can tell that there's a light there. That's a fill light. It just helps to give dimension and so that I don't have all of that straight light coming down here. The last light is behind me, which is I think it's the backlight, but its intention, its purpose is to make sure that there's depth behind me so that you can tell that this is it's not just a flat 2-dimensional space. So I probably will, in the next thing that I will improve will be my lighting, but at the moment, it kind of gets the job done. Tips for filming, lighting, sound. I would just say that when you do a YouTube video, you should remember that everything that you put in the frame is open for people to look at. And if you're very casual and you don't mind people seeing the inside of your house or the inside of your bedroom, that's fine. I just know that if you're going to have a 10 or 15 minute video, people will always be looking you in the eye because they're watching you on television. They're going to be looking at your bookshelf and looking at your desk and looking around your house. And I know that some people don't mind that, but it certainly was, for me, I thought a lot about what I wanted in the frame, what I wanted to communicate, because all of that is part of my content, part of my message, and I wanted to represent me. For my mic, my Rode mic, I tend to record everything on 0 because I don't need either the boost in decibels or the sort of reduction of noise, and that works out just fine. And my camera settings, my friend Thomas helped me set up. There's a Canon utility that if you put on the disc, the CD that comes with it, you can do live remote viewing. So right now, rather than just looking into the camera and recording based off of what the camera has, on my screen I can actually see the feed, and then I can, check things. This has been really helpful for me in terms of getting a better look and a more professional look, and playing around with the ISO and the f-stops and that sort of thing. The other thing is, I want to give you some benefit of my experience, and when it comes to filming, that's about script writing. I'm starting to do more script writing. It is the thing that I kind of came to last in doing my YouTube videos, and that's because I teach and I have a lot of confidence in my ability to speak extemporaneously. Sometimes that works really well, and I like what I get on video when I'm speaking passionately and I'm speaking in the moment. Other times I trip over my words and I make a fool of myself. But I think that's also part of the process, and I don't mind looking a bit silly in my videos because I don't take myself that seriously to edit out every mistake I ever make. I mean, I'm human. So when it comes to doing your content, you can just freeform it, just speak to the camera and see how it goes. You can read your script out, which is, definitely writing every line and reading it out. That ends up, to me, unless you're really good at delivery, feeling quite false. You can hear when people are reading, and yes, their ideas are very clear, but it feels a little less passionate. Then there's also, I think, which is my middle ground, I make a series of notes and then I speak from the notes, and that is what I'm finding out is working for me in terms of having a place to look to make sure I'm going in the right direction, but also allowing me the ability to speak to the camera, to speak to you like you were sitting here with me in my living room. So that's my intention. I really want to have that personal relationship, so reading from a script isn't an option, and delivering lines I don't have enough confidence in. So that's the middle ground that I found. In terms of getting on and doing the video, how should you be? I would say go ahead and just be yourself, but maybe be a slightly bigger version of yourself. And that's because a lot of times when I'm doing my YouTube video and I make an expression or I do something, it feels like I'm being really over the top, if that makes sense. It feels like I'm over-exaggerating my own expressions. But when I end up doing the editing, what I realize is that in a lot of ways my expressions could be bigger, my emotions, what I do within the frame could be bigger and more explosive. So don't be afraid to get a little bit, bit of movement, a bit. If you have something you feel passionate about, express it passionately, and that will come across. But importantly, this is very important, a mistake that I learned, don't move backwards and forwards. Don't lean in and lean out while you're doing your videos, because it will force your camera to follow you, and that might be slightly distracting. It's fine to go within the same plane. So be big here, move your head this way, move your head that way, but don't be swaying back and forth, or it's just not going to turn out the way that you wanted it to. The next big challenge was editing, and to be honest, like I said, I hadn't done any of this before, so I was totally a newbie and was looking on YouTube again. YouTube is a great resource for all of these, types of topics, but eventually you just have to do it. And at the end of the day, CyberLink PowerDirector 12.0 had a 30-day free trial, and That was a very good plan. Here's the thing that is obvious now that I look back on it. But if you buy a free software package for editing your video and you have it for 30 days and you do a lot of editing with that free trial, you're pretty much just going to learn that software and be more likely to just buy it. And that's what happened with me. And that's good. I mean, that's what they do it for. But I think that there is a little bit, unless you really want to try out a lot of different packages, by the end of 30 days you're so invested in whatever sample you have, you're probably going to go with that if you can afford it. And they had a sale going on. I think I spent like 70 euros or something on that package because they were putting out a new one. So that was a very good deal for me. But editing was a really new project, and I want to tell you a little bit about confronting editing. All right, here are my tips for editing. First is, when you've done your takes and you've got your information on your laptop and you bring it into your director suite, your editing suite, I have learned the hard way. Always start with sound, always start with the audio. And now what I do in PowerDirector, they have two accompanying audio programs. One is VideoMic, the other one is Wave Editor. And I use Wave Editor and the noise reduction technique or effect. And the sound on the mic is really good, but you're still going to get some background. So what I end up doing is just washing it through the noise reduction at about, it goes from 0 to 100 scale, and I do it at like 7. So I don't really need that much noise reduction. If I do too much more, it sounds like I'm speaking from a submarine. So there's a real fine line between clarity while you're washing out that background noise and then starting to get the distortion. I find 7 for my like the controlled situation that I'm in here, being inside of a house, is just fine. Then the other thing I do is the dynamic range control in VideoMic, and I always try to bring the range of audio to make sure that it's not squeaking above like plus 12 and minus 12 decibels on either side of the range, because that's when, if I squeak when I talk, that's where that sound is going to go. So with the audio range compression, it reduces the amount of space that sounds can have, and you get less of that kind of squeaking. So those are the two things that I do to filter my sound first. Then the next thing that I have learned to do is to, in PowerDirector 12, I jack up the decibels in the audio all the way up to 12, and I take the gains down to maybe in the 70s, and I play with that a little bit to find the best tone. The last thing, this very last thing on audio, is in my YouTube channel, there is a place where they tell you what people watch in terms of how they watch your content. Do they watch it on a laptop, on a tablet, on a television, whatever else. More than 75% of my viewers watch my content on a laptop. So when I do my audio, I know a lot of people do the headphone thingy. I don't have really nice headphones, and people are watching it on their laptops. So I make sure I can hear it on my laptop and it sounds good on my laptop. And I figure if my crappy speakers from my laptop without any enhancements still get across the content, then that will be fine. And then I'll go ahead also and put in my own external speakers and make sure that that's how it works. But really, doing the audio is probably more time-consuming and more fiddly than even doing the video editing. Video editing. This was pretty intuitive in CyberDirector. I watched, I think, maybe 1 or 2 videos on YouTube on how to actually do the editing, and the rest of it I just learned by experimentation. And I would say now, to be honest, you know, the first video I did, it was probably 10 to 1, because I was cutting things up in terms of how much time it took me recording versus editing it. And it was probably 10 to 1 because of my learning curve. But really, at this point now, my video editing is getting much faster. The audio, like I said, has become this big thing that is more cumbersome than the actual video editing. And so don't really feel worried about the video editing. That the software you have, you'll get the hang of that pretty quick. A good technique that someone explained in another helpful video that I can't remember is between jump cuts to widen the frame or narrow the frame so that it looks more natural to your YouTube audience. Let me tell you from experience, zooming in and zooming out is fine, but be careful about starting to move objects within the frame, because I had a bad experiment of what I thought was making the frame look nice, but then I ended up jumping. I would be here, then I would be here, and I was getting motion sickness. So zoom in, zoom out, that's it, unless you're a professional. But that does help to ease the jump cut, I find, in my editing process. Then once you've got the video done, you'll want to do intros and outros, some kind of welcome and some kind of closure. The welcome will introduce your topic, maybe a little bit about you, and the outro is where you're going to want people to go next. So what's the next video in your series that you want them to watch? That's the idea of the outro. What I would say is, if you're doing a video for the first time and you get to the point where you have an intro and an outro that you're happy with, then what I do in my CyberDirector, PowerDirector thingy, is to save an empty, it's basically, I call it a work suite. And I have the intro that I like with the music and the images, and the outro with the music and the images, and I save that as an empty folder. So that way I don't have to recreate my introduction every time I do a video. I just go ahead, open the work suite, I start putting in videos, and then I save it under a different name. And that is going to save you so much time. I wish someone would have told me that. Okay, a couple other things about your videos. There are really important things that you need to learn about copyright laws and how to make sure you're complying with copyright laws. YouTube has a lot of information on this. There's also a lot of information that people have put out on YouTube about this. I'm going to link to, I think it's the Hank Green video on copyright, the current state of copyright on YouTube, which, if you're watching this, depending on the date, might be out of date, so make sure you check the latest information as these legal issues evolve. But there are places where you can find free music that is available for commercial use. I think it's called the Free Music Archive, to search for music that artists have said, yes, it's fine for you to use this for a commercial purpose. So make sure that if you are going to be using any content that you haven't created, either music or images, whatever else, just make sure you're reading the instructions, the guidelines on in complying with copyright, because the last thing you want is to spend a lot of time making really great content, and then because of 1, 3, or 5 segment little piece of copyright violation, you have to take the whole video down. It's not a huge thing to be scared of, it's not a reason not to post. Just make sure you're aware of what the current state of YouTube regulations are, or recommendations. Now you have your beautiful video, you're ready for the world to see it. You're not yet done. I always felt when I was making my first YouTube video, I was like, okay, I got the equipment. Now I gotta figure out the content. Now I gotta write it. Now I gotta record it. Now I gotta edit it. And I'm still not done. But it does get easier, it does get faster, especially the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So you've done all this work, you're still not done. You have to process your video, and then you have to upload it. And of course, you have to upload it to a channel, and what your channel says about you is another thing you want to think about. So there are very good videos, again, on YouTube in terms of creating channel art and how to do that. I use PicMonkey to create my YouTube channel art. It's free, it's very easy to use. There's a video, I will try to find it and link it because I have a hard time finding it myself. The woman who does it does a nice explanation of PicMonkey and how to create channel art, so I will link that in the description box. But that's what I would recommend in terms of your channel art. Your channel art, your picture will say information and give information about you. So on mine, because I upload weekly, I want people to know that. I put uploads weekly on my channel photo, my channel art. I do new channel art about once a week. What I do is I will put up the date of the next video for my book series episode, and then I'll point to whether or not I've just released an episode of An Atheist Asks or one is coming up. And the idea there is to show people not just that I upload weekly, but to give them a schedule, to get them used to the idea that when there's an old video out, they can come back to my channel and check for when the new one is going to be uploaded. And currently I'm trying to do a different Atheist Reads every Thursday, usually around 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the United States, because that's when it seems to be a good time to post YouTube videos to get attention. And that's another thing you'll want to look into, is the use metrics, or the other kinds of measurements of when people use YouTube. When is the best time to upload a new video for it to come up on people's screens? When are people watching YouTube? So you don't want to do it like Sunday evening at 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time or something like that. And obviously that's going to be different based on your geographical location, but because my audience tends to be North Americans, that is something that I take into consideration. Thumbnails and titles, yeah, those are important. I don't necessarily know that you're going to get a whole lot of views. When it comes to thumbnails, have an engaging thumbnail. I tend to pick now pictures where I'm doing goofy things or more exaggerated things because I want to convey energy in the image of my thumbnail. I want to get the idea that I'm giving something that people will find amusing or entertaining. And that is how I choose my images. In terms of how I choose my titles, I always try to ask a question or say something a bit weird, or pose it in a way that both communicates the content but leaves the person who's reading it questioning. An example of this is a recent episode of An Atheist Asks. I mirrored a question that was asked in research: why do young people become atheists? And that was it. An atheist asks, why do young people become atheists? Because that's what I wanted people to go, yeah, that's an interesting question. Why do young Christians become atheists? So those are my strategies for thumbnails and titles for my YouTube videos. Then in terms of finding an audience, couple things I would say. I do share it with my friends and family, but to be honest, that's not my audience. My friends and family aren't my audience. My audience are strangers, and so I need to go out and find them. I have used Facebook, although of course you're going to run into groups where if you try to share your own content, it's called self-promotion. So you'll have to make sure that any groups that you join where you want to post, that you get permission or that they allow you to self-promote. And there are pages on Facebook that allow you to self-promote. I've tried a little bit into Reddit, but they've got this blocking time thing where you've got to wait ages, and I just don't have time to wait. So I have to count on other people to do Reddit for me. Where I found my audience has been in Twitter, because there are a lot of activists who are atheists and out atheists on Twitter. The way that I've done it is to put up my content, and in my YouTube profile I mention that I'm an atheist and I do YouTube videos on atheism. And then if I find someone who's followed me and I check the people who are following them, if they are an out atheist, anyone who puts atheist in their profile name, if you're willing to say you're an atheist, you're probably at least somewhat interested in learning more about atheism as a movement. So I will go ahead and follow those people, and I'll wait like 2 or 3 weeks, and if they just don't follow me back, I'll unfollow them. I don't want to hassle people, but I just want to inform people that my content is out there. Of course, following people isn't enough. You need to engage a little bit, and I don't just put up my own videos. I tend to be a YouTube activist, and so I don't do a lot of blog retweets. I tend to do a lot of YouTube retweets, and so I retweet people on YouTube, other atheists who I like. So Atheist Analysis, there was a new show I just found, I can't remember, the Prototype Atheist, and he had a guy on, the Foxhole Atheist, and so these guys have channels, and they're the people that I really want to communicate with. So when they have new content out, I tweet it to my followers, and I also go and I post on their Facebook, I go and post on their YouTube content, and I'll say, hey, great video, really enjoyed it. Because for me, it's not just enough to get an audience, I want to be an activist, and that means communicating both ways, not just letting people watch me, but also talking back to them. And then in terms of keeping my audience, as I said, I want to upload weekly and make sure I keep that commitment so that people know that they can count on my content. I also, when people take the time to comment on my videos, whether it's positive or negative, I mean, I have to say I haven't had too many problems with trolls, so this policy might change. But I've had generally really positive feedback, and if it's nothing more than thank you for taking the time to watch my video and to comment, you know, I've only got 170 subscribers. I think 171 now this morning. So that's not a big deal to me to take that time. But I think for a viewer, it means a lot to know that I have read their words and that I am thanking them for their time. And for me, it's less important that I get a viral video and 2 million hits. If I have 500 core people who come to my channel and watch my content every week, that for me means a lot more than being a flash in the pan. So my strategy and my channel and my content, everything is about making a connection with my audience, and not only just me preaching to my audience, but literally opening up a two-way conversation with people. That's my goal. That's really what I want to be doing with my YouTube channel. And I think if you go back through this video, you might see how everything kind of aligns to that one goal. Okay, some final thoughts. In terms of when you do have your video up on YouTube, do use their analytics. Spend some time on the YouTube channel's analytics once you're, say, like a week or so into your first video or your videos, depending on how many you put up. Go ahead and really click through the analytics, not only the real-time views, those are always rewarding to see who's watching your video, but look at your audience retention. Look at where people fall off. It might be the case that you can tighten your video up a little bit, or maybe you just have to think about the fact that your content isn't going to be suitable for everyone. So you're just going to see maybe a trend where you get a big drop-off, but then you have really consistent viewers. Don't make huge decisions based on a few of those metrics. Go ahead and make tweaks to your content and see how it goes. It would be my recommendation. Another thing I would say definitely do is look at people on YouTube whose styles you admire and whose approaches you want to have the same impact that they have on you, on your audience. And in that case, you certainly can copy a format. My influences on a different atheist reads was certainly Steve Shive's An Atheist Reads series. And basically, I ripped off his format, but I did it with a different book. So that's fine. And he's fine with it, I should say. He was really honored that someone would, find his series inspirational. The other thing in terms of the tone, I really like My Drunk Kitchen, and I really like the Vlogbrothers, the SciShow and Crash Course, and I like the energy of those shows, and I like the cuts, and I like the spontaneity that comes across in it, and those are things that I aspire to in my videos, sometimes more than others, but I do think that if you have videos that you really enjoy, make videos you enjoy watching. Go ahead and copy techniques or copy styles or play around with it so that you change the energy of in your editing to give it more of an oomph. I think all of that is absolutely fine. You don't have to be, you have to be real, but you can't in a YouTube video be anything more than a construction of yourself, because you're putting together the best bits of your own performance. And I think that that's fine, and you shouldn't be worried about that. Go ahead and take out mistakes if you want. Leave in stuff that you're being silly and comfortable with too. All of that is part of the process of learning how you do your YouTube channel. Right, we've covered a lot of information, but I think that it's a lot of information that you can look into more depth about with other specific YouTube videos, but this should give you an idea of, if you do want to start a YouTube channel, what are you getting into? And also, if you decide to start the YouTube channel and you get in the middle of it, you can come back and check this, like, how did you do the lighting again? What was the key light and the what? You can come back here and check this again and check back for tips. And if you have recommendations of other good videos, please go ahead and link those in the comments. I love to hear your comments, and I love to hear your feedback, as you know. And please do check out my channel, Dr. K.M. Winters, and my YouTube series, An Atheist Asks and a Different Atheist Reads. You don't have to be an atheist to enjoy them. Thank you for your time and for watching, and best of luck. I look forward to seeing your YouTube content in the future.